The night my husband raised a glass and thanked me for helping him steal $2 million. He did not know I was standing outside the dining room door. My name is Claire Bennett. I was 40, 2 years old, married for 17 years, and until that night I believed loyalty was the strongest thing in my life. I was wrong. Loyalty was only the blindfold that kept me from seeing the knife. Daniel and I lived outside Savannah, Georgia, in a white house with blue shutters and oak trees bending over the driveway. Everyone thought we had built a perfect life. Daniel ran Bennett Coastal Restoration, a company that repaired historic homes after storms. I handled the money. Our best friend, Marcus Hale, found investors and contracts. Together, the three of us had turned a small business into a company worth millions. That Friday, Daniel told me he was meeting Marcus to discuss a difficult client. I had driven halfway to my sister's house when I noticed Daniel's leather folder on the passenger seat. He never went into an important meeting without it, so I turned around. When I reached home, Marcus's black SUV was hidden behind our garage. Through the dining room window, I saw candles, expensive wine, and a woman in a red dress. She was Alina Ward, our outside attorney. Daniel stood beside her with his hand resting on her waist. I stopped breathing. Then Marcus lifted his glass. "To Claire," he said. "The most honest woman in Georgia. Honest enough to trust every paper we put in front of her." They laughed. Daniel smiled in the way I once thought belonged only to me. By Monday, the missing money will point directly to her. By the time she understands, Elena and I will be in Charleston, and Claire will be explaining forged transfers to federal investigators. Elena kissed his cheek. "And the insurance policy. Active," Daniel said. "If the stress becomes too much for her, Marcus and I are protected." I could not hear the next few words over the pounding in my ears. They were not only planning to leave me. They were building a crime around my name. Worse, Daniel had spoken about my death as if it were a convenient accounting adjustment. I wanted to walk inside and throw the folder at him. Instead, I remembered something my father taught me. He had been a quiet county auditor who could find a lie inside 1,000 pages of numbers. Never confront a thief while he still believes you are asleep. I returned to my car, placed Daniel's folder exactly where it had been, and drove away without turning on my headlights. At a gas station, I pulled into the darkest corner and opened it. Inside were ordinary contracts, except for one page folded behind a property estimate. It listed 6 companies I had never seen. Each had received payments from Bennett Coastal. At the bottom was a handwritten note: "See signs Monday. Move final 600. Close Blue Heron." C was me. Blue Heron was the name of a restoration project on Tybee Island. The property had supposedly been damaged in a hurricane. Our company had billed more than $800,000 for work there. I had never visited it because Daniel claimed the owners demanded privacy. I photographed every page and put the folder back. Then I called my sister and told her I had a headache and was going home. I spent 40 minutes driving in circles so Daniel would think I had never returned early. At 11, I entered our house through the front door. The dishes were gone. Marcus's SUV had disappeared. Elena's perfume remained in the hallway. Daniel came downstairs in sweatpants and kissed my forehead. "How was your sister?" he asked. "Fine," I said. I was proud that my voice did not shake. "You look tired. Long week." He put an arm around me. That familiar touch almost broke me. 17 years of birthdays, hospital visits, mortgage payments, inside jokes, and Sunday coffee lived inside that arm. But now I understood that memories could be real, even when the person beside you had become a stranger. On Monday morning, Daniel placed 3 transfer approvals on my desk. The last one was for $600,000 to Harbor Environmental Services. I recognized the amount from his note. "The Tybee project is closing," he said. "Marcus needs these before noon." I smiled. "Of course." Instead of my normal signature, I made the final letter slightly taller. It was a harmless change, invisible unless someone knew to look. My father had called it a marker, a way to identify the exact moment a document entered a chain of evidence. Then I approved the transfer. Daniel relaxed. He thought he had won. That afternoon, 2 federal agents walked through our office and asked for me by name. Every employee turned to stare. Daniel stepped out of the conference room wearing a perfect expression of confusion. Agent Rivera placed a card on my desk. "Mrs. Bennett, we need to discuss several financial transactions authorized with your credentials." Daniel came beside me. There must be some mistake. He reached for my hand. To everyone else, he looked like a protective husband. I felt his fingers squeeze once, hard enough to hurt. That was his warning: stay quiet and follow the plan. I looked directly into his eyes and gave him the frightened smile he expected. "I'll help however I can," I said. What Daniel did not know was that 2 hours earlier, I had mailed a sealed envelope to the one person he feared most. My father's former partner, forensic accountant Ruth Calder. And inside that envelope was the first page of the ledger that would destroy him. Part 2. TST in VR, nay deed rapier. The agents questioned me for 3 hours in a gray federal office. I answered carefully. I did not lie, but I did not reveal everything. Agent Rivera showed me transfers bearing my electronic approval, vendor invoices carrying my initials, and email instructions sent from my account late at night. The evidence looked convincing. That was what terrified me most. "Did anyone else know your password?" Rivera asked. "My husband knew where I kept emergency access instructions." "Would he use them?" I allowed silence to fill the room. I used to believe he wouldn't. When I left, Daniel was waiting beside my car. He hugged me where the agents could see. "Do not mention me again," he whispered against my hair. "They already think you did it. If you fight, you'll only make it worse." I pulled away and stared at him as if he had shocked me. In truth, his cruelty had become almost calming. Every threat confirmed I was on the right trail. That evening, Ruth Calder called from a prepaid phone. She was 68, silver-haired, and sharper than anyone I knew. "Your father would tell you to leave the house tonight," she said. "If I leave, Daniel will know I heard them. Then we make him believe you are scared, not suspicious. Tomorrow, take a suitcase to your sister. Cry where a neighbor can see you. After that, meet me at the old county records building." The next morning, I did exactly that. I argued with Daniel loudly enough for our housekeeper to hear. I said the investigation was destroying me. I packed clothes with shaking hands that did not need acting. Daniel watched from the bedroom doorway. "Maybe some time apart is best," he said gently. He wanted me gone. That hurt more than I expected. At the records building, Ruth spread my photographs across a wooden table. She had already searched the 6 companies. 5 were shell businesses registered through Elena's law office. The 6th, Harbor Environmental, belonged to a man named Owen Pike, Marcus's cousin. They created fake vendors, sent company money out, and used your approval trail to make you the final gatekeeper. Ruth explained. But money does not disappear. It changes clothes. We followed property records, insurance filings, and contractor permits. Blue Heron House had received the largest payments. According to our records, it needed new foundations, mold removal, roofing, electrical work, and custom windows. According to county photographs, it had not suffered serious storm damage at all. That night, Ruth and I drove to Tybee Island. Blue heron stood behind a high cedar fence. Through a gap, I saw a beautiful 3-story beach house glowing above the dunes. A new brass sign read Private Residency. A catering truck arrived. Then Marcus's SUV. Then Elena's convertible. Finally, my husband drove through the gate. Ruth touched my arm. Do not go closer. But I needed to see. I walked along the public beach and approached from the water. Through the wide glass windows, Daniel and Elena danced in an empty living room. Marcus opened champagne. On the wall hung architectural drawings labeled Hal, War D VOP Grove. They had used our company to renovate a private investment property, then build the work as disaster restoration. The stolen money had paid for their future. Daniel pulled Elena close. I watched my husband kiss her beneath a chandelier I had unknowingly purchased. My phone vibrated. It was a security alert from our home system. Bisamamed. Do opem. Only Daniel and I knew the basement code. Yet Daniel stood 30 yards in front of me. Someone else was inside our home. Ruth and I raced back toward Savannah. I called my sister and asked her to send the police for a possible break-in, but I did not return to the house. By the time officers arrived, the basement was empty. Nothing obvious was missing. The next day, Daniel called. Someone broke in, he said. Probably looking for financial records. Did you take anything? There was something controlled in his voice. He was testing me. No. Should I come home? Stay with your sister. I'll handle it. And after he hung up, Ruth showed me traffic, camera footage she had legally obtained through a private investigator. A gray pickup had left our street minutes before police arrived. It belonged to Owen Pike. Why would Marcus's cousin enter my basement? I suddenly remembered the old metal cabinet my father gave me before he died. Years earlier, I stored backup company ledgers inside it. Daniel believed I had thrown them away when we moved our accounting system online. I had not. We waited until Daniel returned to the office. Then I met the police at my house and documented that I was retrieving personal items. The cabinet's lock had been forced. Most folders remained. But the backup ledger from our first major storm season was gone. Behind the cabinet, I found a small black device plugged into the wall. Ruth examined it without touching it. Audio transmitter. Daniel had been listening inside our own house. I felt violated, but Ruth smiled for the first time. Good, she said. A listening device works both ways. From now on, we decide what he hears. We left it in place. That evening, sitting beside the transmitter, I called Ruth and performed the most important lie of my life. I found the old ledger, I said loudly. It proves everything. I put it in a safe deposit box at Coastal Union Bank. There was no ledger and no box. It was bait, at 9:12 the next morning. Coastal Union called to tell me someone had entered the bank, using a notarized power of attorney, bearing my forged signature. The person was Elena Ward, and the bank's camera had recorded every second. Part 3. Teets Maman and Tiate Barayas. Elena left the bank empty-handed. But the video gave us something better than the missing ledger. It showed her presenting a false power of attorney and asking specifically for a box in my name. When the manager found no box, Elena claimed I must have moved it. Agent Rivera listened while I explained the transmitter, the forged document, and the dinner conversation. This time, I told him everything. He did not promise to believe me. He asked hard questions, examined my photographs, and sent technicians to recover the listening device. Then he placed one condition on our cooperation. You do nothing alone, he said. Your husband mentioned insurance. We must treat that as a possible threat. For the first time since the dinner, I admitted I was afraid. The investigation changed direction quietly. Publicly, I remained the main suspect. Daniel believed the government was preparing charges against me. Privately, Rivera's team traced the shell companies, while Ruth mapped the money. I moved into a small, furnished apartment under my sister's name. At night, I replayed my marriage and searched for the point where love had become strategy. Had Daniel ever loved me? Or had my skill with numbers made me useful from the beginning? Then Elena called. "Claire, we should talk woman to woman," she said. We met in a crowded hotel cafe while agents watched from nearby. Elena wore the same red dress I had seen through my window. She wanted me to recognize it. "Daniel is worried about you," she said. "Is that what he calls it?" Her smile tightened. "The government has documents with your signature. If you accept responsibility for weak controls, Daniel can keep the company alive. He may even pay for your defense." "And you?" "I'm trying to keep everyone from losing everything." She slid a settlement agreement across the table. It required me to surrender my ownership in Bennett Coastal, accept sole responsibility for financial compliance, and remain silent about Daniel and Marcus. In return, they would give me $200,000. It was not a settlement. It was a confession they wanted me to sign. I pretended to consider it. "I need proof Daniel will protect me." Elena leaned closer. "He already protected you once." "What does that mean?" For 1 second, confidence left her face. Then she stood. "Sign by Friday." That strange sentence stayed with me. Protected me once. Ruth found the answer in an old insurance file. 5 years earlier, our company warehouse had burned. The cause was ruled electrical. Insurance paid $3 million, saving Bennett Coastal from a cash crisis I had not known existed. Daniel had managed the claim. Marcus had arranged the electrical inspection. Elena had negotiated the payout. The inspector was Owen Pike. We searched archived records. 2 days before the fire, Daniel increased the policy. The night of the fire, the alarm system went offline using my administrator code. Once again, my credentials had been placed at the scene. I remembered that night clearly. Daniel had taken me to Atlanta for our anniversary. He chose the hotel, paid cash for dinner, and insisted we take photographs in the lobby. I thought he was being romantic. Now I saw that he had constructed an alibi for himself while leaving a digital trail pointing toward me. The old warehouse fire was not a separate crime. It was the first rehearsal. Rivera reopened the case. Owen Pike became the weak link. He had debts, a recent divorce, and none of the beach house ownership he had been promised. Agents approached him, but he refused to speak. Then Owen sent me a message EOUR FARS LIGR. Calm aloling. Rivera ordered me not to go. We arranged a controlled meeting instead, with agents close enough to intervene. Owen chose an abandoned marina outside the city. Rain struck the metal roof, while I waited between empty boat slips. He appeared carrying a plastic bag. His hands shook. "Marcus," said the ledger, "proved you planned the warehouse fire," he said. But I read it. "It proves Daniel had been moving money before the fire." "Why give it to me?" "Because they are going to kill me." He handed me the bag. Inside was my father's old ledger and a flash drive. Owen said the drive contained recordings he had made after Marcus refused to pay him. One recording captured Daniel discussing the fire. Another captured Elena preparing false invoices. Then headlights swept across the marina. Owen panicked. He ran toward the back exit. A black SUV accelerated between the storage buildings and struck the railing inches from him. Federal vehicles surged from the darkness. The SUV reversed and escaped through a service road before agents could block it. Owen lay on the wet ground, alive but bleeding. Before the ambulance took him, he grabbed my sleeve. "It was not Daniel's idea to frame you," he whispered. "He was going to leave you, but someone else chose you for prison." "Who?" His eyes moved toward the ledger. Inside its back cover, my father had written one name in red ink. Mar Cus Hale. Pert for. Tichi per do chosi me. I had always treated Marcus like family. He gave a speech at our wedding. He sat with me when my father died. Every Christmas. He brought the same terrible fruitcake and laughed when nobody ate it. Daniel betrayed our marriage, but Marcus designed my destruction. My father's ledger showed that Marcus had been stealing from the company for nearly a decade. Small amounts at first, hidden inside material purchases. When my father noticed, he warned Daniel privately. 6 weeks later, my father died after his car went off a rural bridge. His death had been ruled an accident. I stared at the red name until the letters blurred. Do you think Marcus killed him? Rivera answered carefully. We have suspicion, not proof. The flash drive gave us part of that proof. On one recording. Marcus told Owen that the old man should have kept his nose out of the books. He did not confess to murder, but he mentioned paying a mechanic to solve the problem. Investigators found that mechanic living in Alabama. Faced with the recording and old bank deposits, he admitted disabling my father's brake line. Marcus had ordered it. Grief became something colder inside me. I had spent 9 years believing rain, and bad luck took my father. Marcus had stood beside his grave knowing the truth. I wanted him to feel fear. Rivera wanted evidence that would survive court. Together, we created a plan that gave us both. Alina's deadline arrived Friday. I signed the settlement agreement, but not the copy she gave me. Agents prepared a version with a hidden recording device in the folder and harmless changes that made it legally void. I told Alina I would surrender if Daniel met me at Blue Heron House and promised, face to face, to protect me. Daniel agreed immediately. The beach house was bright and beautiful when I entered. Daniel waited in the living room. Elena stood near the windows. Marcus poured drinks. Hidden agents surrounded the property, but none of them could help unless the conversation produced evidence or I gave the emergency signal. I placed the folder on the table. Before I sign everything, I said, I need to understand what happens to me. Daniel spoke softly. Your attorney negotiates a plea, maybe 18 months. When you get out, you start over somewhere quiet. You expect me to go to prison for you. For us, he said. For what we built. I almost laughed. And my father was killing him also for us. Marcus froze. Alana looked toward the door. Daniel went pale. Claire, you're upset. I took my father's ledger from my bag and placed it beside the agreement. Marcus recovered first. Where did you get that? Owen. The room changed. Their careful performance ended. Marcus stepped toward me. Lies? The mechanic does not. Daniel turned on him. You said that was handled. Those 6 words were enough to show Daniel knew about the murder after the fact. But I needed more. I looked at my husband. Did you know before my father died? Daniel's eyes filled with something that resembled shame. No. I found out later. And you stayed in business with him. But then, Marcus had proof about the warehouse fire. We were trapped. Elena snapped. Stop talking. Marcus knocked the folder from the table. She is recording us. He grabbed my wrist. I shouted the emergency phrase. My father taught me better. Agents moved toward the house, but Marcus dragged me through the kitchen and onto the rear deck. He pressed a gun against my side. Daniel followed, begging him to stop. Elena ran toward her car. On the beach below, blue lights flashed through the rain. Marcus held me against the railing. Give me the drive. The agents have copies. Then you are useless. Daniel stepped closer. Let her go. Marcus laughed. Now you love her. Daniel looked at me, and for one foolish second I saw the young man I had married. Then I saw his eyes drop toward the gun. He lunged. The shot shattered a glass door. I fell to the deck. Agents stormed the stairs and forced Marcus down. Daniel clutched his bleeding shoulder. Alina's car was stopped at the gate. Within minutes, all three were in custody. But as paramedics lifted Daniel onto a stretcher, he whispered, "I saved your life. Tell them I saved you." Even wounded, he was still keeping accounts. The next morning, Rivera brought me devastating news. The settlement recording proved conspiracy and fraud. The flash drive connected them to arson. The mechanic connected Marcus to my father's murder. But $2 million was still missing. Without it, victims and employees might never be repaid. Daniel had hidden the final account so well that even Ruth could not find it. Then I remembered the transfer I signed on Monday, the signature with the taller final letter. My marker. I examined the cleared transfer and noticed the receiving bank code had been changed after my approval. The altered code pointed not to Harbor Environmental, but to a trust in the Cayman Islands. The trust was named CDB-17, my initials, the number of years we had been married. Daniel had hidden the stolen money inside a secret account created in my name, and he believed that made it untouchable. He was wrong. 5. MYAM. Alt-Dower. Because the trust carried my name, I could authorize the bank to freeze it while agents proved its criminal source. Daniel had built the account to incriminate me. Instead, it became the door through which we recovered everything. The $2 million returned first. Then investigators seized Blue Heron House, Alina's hidden accounts, Marcus's properties, and insurance money connected to the warehouse fire. Employees received their unpaid wages. Investors recovered most of their losses. The families of 2 small contractors, ruined by Marcus's false billing, were repaid. Justice did not arrive as one dramatic moment. It came in documents, hearings, sworn statements, and long days beneath courthouse lights. Marcus was charged with murder, conspiracy, fraud, arson, and attempted kidnapping. The mechanic's testimony and Owen's recordings ended his denials. Alina pleaded guilty to conspiracy, forgery, bank fraud, and obstruction. She surrendered her law license before the state could take it. Daniel tried to present himself as another victim of Marcus. He reminded prosecutors that he had lunged for the gun. He told anyone who would listen that he still loved me. Then Agent Rivera played the dinner recording recovered from the transmitter's remote storage. Daniel's own voice described framing me and collecting insurance if I died. His final defense collapsed. Before sentencing, Daniel asked to see me. I almost refused. Ruth told me I did not owe him closure. My sister said some doors deserved to remain locked. But I went because I wanted to know whether looking at him would still hurt. We sat across from each other in a courthouse interview room. He wore a plain jail uniform. Without his expensive suit and practiced confidence, he looked smaller, but not different. "I never wanted Marcus to hurt you," he said. "You only wanted me in prison. I was trapped. You had 17 years to tell me the truth." He lowered his head. "Elena made me feel like I could start over." "No, Daniel. Elena made you feel admired. Marcus made you feel powerful. I made you feel known. You chose the people who let you pretend." His eyes filled with tears. Once, those tears would have moved me. Now I understood that regret and remorse were not the same. Regret mourns consequences. Remorse mourns harm. Did any of it mean something? I asked. "Our marriage." He looked at me for a long time. "Yes." "Then why did you do it?" "Because I thought you would always forgive me." There it was, the truth beneath every lie. He had mistaken my love for permission. I stood. "I forgive the woman I was for trusting you. That is the only forgiveness I came to give." Daniel was sentenced to 2 years in federal prison. Marcus received life in state prison, plus federal time. Alina received 11 years after cooperating in several related cases. Owen entered witness protection after pleading guilty to lesser charges. He had helped them, but he also gave us the evidence that stopped them. Justice, I learned, could recognize both facts at once. The government released me from suspicion publicly. Still, innocence did not rebuild a reputation overnight. Some neighbors avoided my eyes. Online strangers repeated the first headlines and ignored the corrections. Banks hesitated to work with our company. The hardest morning came when I returned to my old office. My coffee mug still sat beside the keyboard. A yellow note in Daniel's handwriting reminded me to approve the Blue Heron transfer. I held that little square of paper and finally cried. Not because I missed him, but because ordinary things had carried his lies. Then I opened every curtain. One by one, employees came inside. Nobody offered a grand speech. They simply brought invoices, repair schedules, and cups of coffee. Their trust returned in small, honest pieces, the same way a damaged house is rebuilt board by board, nail by nail. I also began meeting a counselor. At first, I thought healing meant learning why Daniel betrayed me. Eventually, I understood that his reasons could never repair what his choices broke. Healing meant sleeping through the night. It meant signing my name without remembering a forged document. It meant hearing a car outside without checking whether Marcus had come back. Those victories did not make headlines, but they were the ones that returned my life to me. I considered selling Bennett Coastal and leaving Georgia. Then 43 employees gathered in the warehouse parking lot. Carpenters, bookkeepers, project managers, drivers, and painters stood beneath the hot morning sun. Our oldest foreman, Luis, handed me a ring of keys. "This company did not betray us," he said. "3 men and a lawyer did. You're still here." So I stayed. We renamed the business Calder Bennett Restoration, honoring my father and Ruth. I created an employee oversight board, opened the books to independent audits, and devoted part of every contract to rebuilding homes for families without enough insurance. Blue Heron House was sold at auction. I could not bear the thought of another wealthy stranger drinking champagne beneath that chandelier. So our company joined a nonprofit and bought it. We converted the building into a temporary home for women rebuilding their lives after financial abuse. The first resident arrived with 2 suitcases and the same hollow expression I had worn when I left Daniel. I greeted her at the door. "You are safe here," I said. Months later, I visited my father's grave. I brought the restored ledger, sealed inside a clear protective case. Ruth stood beside me while wind moved through the live oaks. "He would be proud," she said. I wish I had listened sooner. You listened when it mattered. I placed my hand on the cool stone and told my father everything: the dinner, the bank, the marina, the trial, and the company bearing his name. I told him that his careful red letters had crossed 9 years to lead me toward the truth. Then I returned to Blue Heron for its opening ceremony. Employees, survivors, reporters, and neighbors filled the lawn. The brass sign for Hale, Ward Development, was gone. In its place was a simple wooden plaque, "The Keldar Hosi," a place Tiobegan Gin. I stood on the same deck where Marcus had held a gun against me. The broken glass had been replaced, but we kept one small mark in the railing. Not as a monument to fear, but as proof that damage could remain visible without controlling the future. A reporter asked whether transforming the house was my revenge. I thought about Daniel in prison, Marcus behind concrete walls, Elena without the career she used as a weapon, and my father finally named as the victim of a crime instead of bad weather. "No," I said. "Their punishment belongs to the courts. This belongs to me." That evening, after everyone left, I walked alone through the house. The ocean beyond the windows was dark and endless. For years, I believed revenge meant making the people who hurt me feel my pain. I know better now. Revenge was recovering my name. Justice was using it to open a door for someone else. Daniel tried to write my ending with forged signatures and stolen money. Marcus tried to bury the truth beside my father. Elena tried to buy my silence for $200,000. They all forgot the same thing. I was the woman who kept the books. And in the final ledger of my life, I did not owe them fear, silence, or forgiveness. I closed the front door of Calder House, looked at my name shining beneath the porch light, and smiled. They had put my name on their crime. So I put my name on the future.